The scent of hay and worn leather usually brought me a quiet kind of peace. My days at the stable were a predictable rhythm. Feed at dawn, muck stalls, groom the horses until their coats gleamed. It was hard work, dirty work, but the horses, they understood me without a single word. Being an orphan, I'd grown up tough and learned early that relying on anyone else was a fool's errand, building walls around myself thick as old stone. Most people I kept at a distance. The horses, though, saw straight through to something gentle, something I rarely showed. That Tuesday, the quiet shattered. A new mare arrived, a magnificent creature with a coat the color of moonlight, aptly named Starlight. She was spirited, beautiful, and clearly expensive. Trailing behind her, giving commands to the stable hands with effortless grace, was her owner, Harper. She was a whirlwind of polished confidence. Her warm, honey-colored hair was swept up in a loose knot, with a few rebellious tendrils framing a striking face, high cheekbones, a strong jawline, and vibrant, almost electric blue eyes. She wore perfectly fitted riding breeches and a crisp white shirt that seemed far too clean for a stable. She moved with easy elegance, a contrast to my practical, deliberate steps. I noticed how her lips pressed together when focused, how her head tilted slightly when listening, even if she was mostly listening to herself. "This mare requires a specific blend of feed," Harper declared, her clear voice carrying across the stable. "And she absolutely cannot have any oats. Only the high-fiber, low-sugar mix. Do you understand?" I'd been cleaning Apollo's stall, my back to her, but I straightened slowly, wiping my hands on my work-worn jeans. "I understand," I replied, my voice coming out perhaps a little flatter than I'd intended. "I've been caring for horses here for years. I know how to follow a feed chart." She turned, those electric blue eyes narrowing slightly as she took in my dusty clothes and calloused hands. A flicker of mild annoyance crossed her features before she settled on a polite, if still slightly imperious, smile. "Of course. I just want Starlight to get the best care." "She will," I said, wheeling fresh hay into Starlight's stall. The mare whickered softly, nuzzling my hand. "All the horses here do." Silence fell, broken only by the rustle of hay. I could feel her gaze on my back as I worked. Unfamiliar, not unpleasant, but like a spotlight cutting through my usual invisibility. I focused on arranging the hay and measuring grain, determined to keep Starlight's stall perfect. Yet a small, stubborn part of me braced for more interactions with this woman who glided through the world, oblivious to the dust she stirred up in my carefully constructed quiet. The next morning, I was in the feed room, precisely measuring Starlight's special blend. The stable was still quiet, the air cool and damp with night's residue. I'd just finished when Harper appeared in the doorway, a sudden warmth against the morning chill. She wasn't in riding gear today, but a casual, fitted sweater and jeans, making her seem a touch less formidable. "Good morning," she said, her voice softer than yesterday, free of its sharp command. I nodded, setting the bucket down. "Morning." She hesitated, then stepped tentatively into the room, her gaze sweeping over the sacks and bins. "Look, Emily," she began, and hearing my name on her lips felt different, more an acknowledgement than a mere address. "About yesterday. I apologize. I can be a bit intense sometimes. I just want what's best for Starlight." My chest tightened defensively, but the sincerity in her eyes and the slight dip of her head surprised me. An apology from her was the last thing I'd expected. "It's fine," I replied, perhaps too quickly. "I get it. You care about your horse." She offered a small, hesitant smile. "I do. She's a big part of my life. My father says I spoil her rotten." Her gaze fell on the bucket. "Is that her mix? How do you know exactly what she needs?" I relaxed a fraction. This was familiar ground about the horses. "You learn to read them," I explained, scooping up some of the high-fiber blend and letting it sift through my fingers. Their coats, energy levels, even how they hold their ears. Starlight has a sensitive stomach. You can tell by how particular she is about her hay. Her eyes are bright, but there's a flicker of anxiety, so consistency is key. Harper watched me, genuinely captivated. Her blue eyes softened, losing their intensity to thoughtful curiosity. "You really see them, don't you?" I shrugged involuntarily. "It's my job." But it was more, and she seemed to understand. "It's more than a job," she countered quietly. "It's a connection. I try, but you have a way with them." She glanced at a dusty old bridle on the wall. "My father says horses are just investments. But they're not, are they?" "No," I said, meeting her gaze. "They're not." In that moment, amid the scent of oats and sawdust, something shifted. The wall between us developed a small crack, not gone, but enough for a glimmer of understanding to shine through, rooted in our shared reverence for these creatures. It was a fragile bridge, built on an unexpected apology and mutual respect for the silent language of horses, leaving me with a feeling I couldn't name. In the days that followed, Harper's visits became a quiet, anticipated part of my routine. She didn't just drop off Starlight, she lingered. I'd catch her leaning against the fence, watching Starlight graze, or speaking to the mare in a soft murmur, a stark contrast to her usual directness. I noticed how morning light gilded her hair, how her perfectly manicured hands stroked Starlight's mane with surprising delicacy. She'd bring special treats for Starlight, organic apples, crisp carrots, and always offer one to me to give her a small gesture that spoke volumes. My lifelong caution didn't vanish, but it eased, like a tight knot slowly loosening. I wasn't used to attention, especially from someone like Harper, who seemed to have a world of possibilities at her fingertips. Yet her interest was never demanding, it was simply present, an acknowledgement of my dedication to the horses. One afternoon, I was bandaging a minor scrape on an older gelding, my brow furrowed in concentration. Harper appeared beside me, her footsteps so light I hadn't heard her approach. "Is he all right?" she asked, her voice hushed. "He'll be fine," I replied, not looking up. "Just a small cut from the pasture. Needs to stay clean." I wrapped the gauze meticulously, my fingers practiced and precise. She watched silently until I finished. "You're very patient and gentle, even with a horse that isn't yours." I finally met her eyes, and the genuine warmth and admiration there felt foreign yet comforting. A faint, cautious warmth bloomed in my chest for this woman who saw more than just a stable hand. Her presence had become a quiet, unexpected bright spot in my solitary world, and for the first time in years, I didn't want it to fade. Our dynamic deepened, with Harper weaving lightness into my stoic routine. She'd arrive with a cheerful greeting that brightened the stable's dusty corners. Once, a mischievous stable cat stole the carrot she'd brought for Starlight, darting under a hay bale. Harper let out a bright, unrestrained laugh, and to my surprise, a genuine smile tugged at my lips. It was a small moment, but a breakthrough, a shared spark of joy. She started lending a hand, holding buckets while I refilled them, untangling halters I'd left on the ground. These weren't tasks she needed to do, but gestures of a fledgling friendship. Our time together felt less like observation and more like collaboration, a comfortable, unspoken rhythm taking hold. One brisk autumn afternoon, we decided to ride Starlight and Jasper, a steady bay, together. The air was crisp, the hills dotted with gold and red leaves. Harper rode with easy confidence, her posture impeccable, while I felt the familiar freedom of Jasper's gait grounding me. As we rode side by side, our knees occasionally brushed, a small contact, easily dismissed as the jostle of riding, but each time, a faint flutter stirred in my chest. Once, navigating a narrow path, her fingers brushed mine as she steadied a loose branch. The touch was fleeting, yet its echo lingered. I told myself it was just the unfamiliarity of closeness after years of isolation. But the truth was, it was more. The sound of her laughter on the wind, the way her blue eyes met mine across the horses' backs, holding a light I'd never seen directed at me before. A new, tender feeling was taking root, one that whispered of possibilities I'd never dared imagine. I found myself anticipating her visits with eager, nervous hope. One evening, the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the stable in lavender and deep blue. The horses were fed and settled, their contented munching filling the air. I was securing the last stall latch when I noticed Harper still there, leaning against a post and watching me. The stable's usual bustle had faded, leaving us in a cocoon of quiet, with the faint scent of horses and hay clinging to the air. A single overhead bulb cast long shadows, making her honey-gold hair shimmer. Tension hummed between us, palpable, unacknowledged, making my skin prickle. My heart, already quickening at her presence lately, now pounded against my ribs. Harper pushed away from the post, taking a slow, deliberate step toward me. Her blue eyes held a softness I'd never seen, a vulnerability that mirrored the faint unease in my own soul. "Emily," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the rustle of straw. "I can't keep pretending this is just about Starlight or friendship." She paused, her gaze steady. "I'm drawn to you, to your quiet strength, how you care for these animals, how you see things." My breath caught. I stood frozen, a whirl of joy and terror clashing inside me. My orphaned upbringing, the years of building walls, the voice telling me I didn't belong, all screamed in my head. Harper, with her privilege and grace, and me, the dusty stable hand. The chasm between us felt unbridgeable. She took another step, closing the gap, and reached for my hands, her fingers lacing through mine. Her touch was warm, sending a wave of conflicting sensations, thrills and fear. Her gaze searched mine, filled with tender sincerity. "I think I'm falling for you, Emily," she whispered. Then, slowly, tentatively, she leaned in. Her lips brushed mine, soft, warm, a gentle question. For a fleeting second, I leaned into it, my body responding instinctively. But then fear cut through the warmth, sharp and cold. I pulled back slightly, breaking the contact. "Harper, I can't," I whispered, the words tasting like ash. I dropped my gaze, unable to meet hers. "We're too different. It wouldn't work." Silence settled, heavy with unspoken hurt. I felt her hands slip from mine. When I finally looked up, her blue eyes were clouded with sadness, the vibrant light in them dimmed. I'd wounded her deeply, and in doing so, wounded myself, my heart protesting the choice my fear had forced. The stable, once a solace, now felt hollow. The scent of hay and horses amplified the ache in my chest. Harper didn't come for 3 days, 3 long, quiet days where her absence gaped like a hole in my routine. I found myself glancing toward the entrance constantly, listening for her arrival, only to be met with silence. I tried to convince myself it was for the best. What could I offer Harper, an orphan who'd scraped by her whole life, against her world of privilege? I'd protected us both from inevitable heartbreak, I reasoned. But the dull throb in my chest told a different story, one of longing for the connection I'd pushed away. On the 4th day, as I led Starlight back to her stall after morning exercise, a familiar figure appeared at the door. Harper wasn't smiling. Her expression was subdued, but there was quiet determination in her eyes. She walked straight to Starlight, stroking her neck softly before turning to me. "Starlight missed her morning carrots," she said, her voice even. She held out a small bag. "Can you give them to her?" I took the bag, our fingers brushing. This time, the jolt wasn't apprehension, but a painful recognition of what I'd lost. There was no anger in her eyes, only gentle persistence. It was a quiet bravery, a promise she wouldn't give up on us yet. And in that moment, despite my fears, a tiny spark of hope ignited. Harper's persistence was subtle yet unyielding. She visited Starlight regularly, sitting on a hay bale to watch me work or walking beside me as I led horses to the paddock. Her questions were soft, never intrusive. "What was it like growing up?" she asked one afternoon as I swept the aisle. The question was unexpected, but her genuine curiosity disarmed my usual defensiveness. "Hard," I admitted, the broom swishing slowly. "Lots of different places. Lots of learning to rely on myself." She nodded, her blue eyes holding understanding. "That's why you're so strong. And so protective of your heart." Her insight stunned me. She saw the layers I'd hidden. A piece of my guard crumbled, and I found myself sharing snippets of my childhood, small stories of resilience I never told anyone. She listened intently, offering no judgment, only empathy. 2 weeks after her confession, we were in Starlight's stall. I brushed the mare's mane to the rhythm of comfortable silence, while Harper leaned against the door, smiling softly. Late afternoon sun streamed through the window, dust motes dancing in the light. My heart felt full, the fear receded by growing trust. I finished brushing Starlight, then turned to Harper. Our eyes met, a silent question in hers. I reached out, my hand brushing hers lightly before settling on her shoulder. She didn't pull away. Fueled by affection and sudden courage, I leaned in. My lips met hers, tentative at first, then certain. This kiss wasn't a question, it was an answer. An acceptance of our connection, a promise to brave the unknown together. It was a raw, vulnerable moment, a declaration that my heart was finally open to her. Days later, drama struck. Harper's mother, Elise, arrived at the stable unannounced, her tailored suit and icy demeanor a stark contrast to the dusty surroundings. She sought me out while Harper was tending to Starlight, cornering me near the feed room. "Emily, isn't it?" she said, her tone sharp with disdain. "I know about you and Harper. This little fling has gone on long enough. You're not fit for her, your backgrounds, your lives, they're worlds apart. You'll only hold her back." Her words cut deep, reinforcing every fear I'd ever had. Before I could respond, Harper appeared, stepping between us. "Mother, stop," she said, her voice firm. "This isn't a fling. Emily is the most important person in my life. Your expectations don't dictate my happiness." Elise's eyes narrowed. "You'll regret this, Harper. I won't stand by while you throw away your future for a stable hand." "I'm not throwing anything away," Harper replied, taking my hand and squeezing it tightly. "I'm choosing what makes me happy. And that's Emily." Elise huffed, storming out of the stable. As her car roared away, Harper turned to me, her eyes softening. "I'm sorry she did that. But I meant every word." Tears pricked my eyes. In that moment, the walls around my heart crumbled completely. "I believe you," I said. In the weeks that followed, we faced the whispers and glances together. Stable hands murmured, and Harper's family made their disapproval known, but her unwavering commitment gave me courage. She didn't just choose me. She stood against her world for me, reshaping my belief that I didn't deserve love. Our days settled into a new rhythm, interwoven with the care of the horses. We still rode Starlight and Jasper, our knees brushing, now with the comfort of shared resolve. Harper taught me that vulnerability wasn't weakness, that asking for help was okay, and that love was a right, not a luxury. One evening, as the horses settled for the night, Harper and I stood by Starlight's stall, her arm linked through mine. Starlight whickered, nudging Harper's hand for a treat. I looked at Harper, her profile silhouetted against the dim light, her blue eyes soft as she gazed at her mare. "It's going to be okay, isn't it?" I murmured, the question filled with quiet certainty, not fear. Harper turned to me, her smile gentle yet unwavering. "More than okay, Emily," she replied, her voice holding the same resilience I'd come to embrace. "It's going to be beautiful." I leaned my head against her shoulder, enveloped in the familiar sense of hay and her presence. For the first time, I felt truly home, not in a place, but in the love of the woman beside me, ready to face whatever the future held together.